Hi class, today we're going to talk about chapter 5 and 6. Those two chapters are all talking about a statement and the loop. So we're going to put those two chapters together. We're going to start it with the if statement for this class. The if statement is the most common statement we use in coding, any coding, C++, C#, any type. This is the one for you to compare a condition to see if it's true or false. When it's true, we can execute a certain statements. If it's false, we can do the other way around. So it's the if statements. The if statement use the Boolean expression as the argument to decide it, what's the next step. So the syntax look like this: if followed by the parentheses. Inside the parentheses is the expression. For example, like x greater than 5, x less than 20, something like that. That's the conditions. If it's true, we will continue with the statement inside the if statement. If it's false, we're going to skip the whole if statement and move on to the next. So this is the flowchart looks like. If it coming, is the code outside? If yes, the action is where code. But doesn't matter if yes or no, the false, by the end, they're going to continue to the same path in your programs. Okay. So inside the if statement, it could have more than one statement. So as long as they are group them together by the curly brace, open and close curly brace, inside here could be more than one line. Not a problem. So when you doing those comparisons, we need to introduce relational operators. They are very similar to what we have in the mathematical world. The only difference is the equals. If you're going to compare two variables, if they are equal, you actually do need to put two equal signs. Why is that? If today put one single equal, what does that mean? That means assignment. So if it's x equal to y, that means y assigned into the x, right? So when you try to compare, make sure you need to have two equals. That's very important. That's a lot of beginning programmers, the mistakes. It's not a syntax error. Computer read x equal to y or x equal to y. For them, there's no error there. But logically, it's incorrect when you try to compare instead of assign the values. Okay. And the other one, you see the exclamation mark and equal. Exclamation mark in the coding code mean not. So exclamation mark equal mean not equal. So you compare x is not equal to y. True is true, false is false. Okay? Relational. So the result for the comparison, it will come up as a Boolean expression. That means it's either true or false. Okay? So for this case, you can see if x greater than y, the console.write, which is display on screen, x is greater than y. Correct. If x equal to y, they compare x is equal to y. If it's not equal, and then they display x is not equal to y, and then now here you see the difference. X equal to y, that's the comparison. X equal to y, that means they assign y into the x. So now they can be equals. That's just an example. Might be a little silly, but it's examples. And the programming style and if a statement can spend more than one more line, whatever, they still one statements. Okay, but like I mentioned before, the spacings, tabbing, and formatting is for us human eyes to read easier. Okay, for computer it doesn't matter. They rely on the punctuation, parentheses, semicolons, quotes and stuff. That's what computer look for. If today you write everything in one line with no space or anything, computer have no problem to reading it and process it as long as you have right punctuation in place. But again, when you're writing the program, try to keep it the style, keep the formatting correct. So because sometimes your program, somebody will be work with you to understand you. Like for example, you're writing to submit it for me to grading it. I need to understand your coding. Okay, so keep it correct. All right. So the important part of this slide is about the punctuations. So the semicolons only ends at the only happen at the end of the statements, not on the expressions. Okay, you cannot put the semicolon after the parentheses. That will mess your program. If you put a semicolon here by the end of the parentheses, that means that parenthesis, that if statement ends right here. Doesn't matter what statement after, it's not belong to the if statement. Okay, so be careful on that when you are putting the semicolons. So like I mentioned earlier, the if statement can have, you can have more than one statement inside the if expression as long as they are grouped together by the curly brace. Okay. But if today you forgot to put the open close curly brace, you have multiple lines. What happened? Computer automatic think, the compiler thinks only the very next statement will belong to if statement. The rest of them will be individually. So what does that mean? If this condition is true in the if statement, they will execute statement 1, 2, 3. If today the if statement here is false, what happened? They're gonna skip the one belong to if, which is the statement 1. They're gonna still execute the statement 2 and 3. So if they all belong to if statement, make sure you use the curly brace to group them together. Okay. And we talk about Boolean variable. Boolean variable we can consider like a flag, like a mark, either true or false. Okay. A flag Boolean value that monitors some condition in the program. So if the average is greater than 95, we can set it into the truth. Okay. And the if statement is not only accepting the comparison condition. As long as the result is true or false, it could be read by if statements. Okay, in this case. So compare characters. You can compare characters. That's not a problem at all. So we mentioned before, all the computer letter is stored in ASCII tables. So for them, computer comparing the character to character, they are actually comparing the number of the combinations. So so you can compare characters. You can see if they are equal, they are less than or greater than. For example, capital A is less than lowercase a. Okay, and capital B is less than capital C. That's just by order of the ASCII table. So yes, you can compare them. And you have if statement. Remember we talked about if it's true, do something. How about if not true? They skip, right? But sometimes you can have a dual actions. If it's true, do this. Else, do something else. So you can have actually two outcomes of the if statements. So you see, this is the flow chart look like. If right, do this way. If no, do the other way. Okay. And then besides that, you can have more than one conditions. So if today is this, do this. Else if, else if, else if. So it could have multiple else if. Okay. So that's the conditions. You can see if statements, else if this, else if this. This one we do it a lot in what? Grading. If it's greater than 90, you get a. Else if greater than 80, you get a B. Else if greater than 70, we get a C. Something like that. And the flow chart will be look nice like this for the gradings. Before I go from up, now we can go down. Less than 60, less than 70, less than 80, less than 90. Okay. So inside the if statement, we can have another if statement inside. So sometimes condition if today. He is male, and if he is aged between 30 to 40, something like that, you can have a nested if statement. So it's if statement inside the if statement. As long as they controlled by the curly brace, they can be inside each statements. Okay. So for flowchart, will look like this. Okay, if it's cold, going yes, going here. Oh, if it's snowing, they have two layers, goes in nested loop. All right, if it's not, of course, you can come up. But just important thing, for the beginning of you guys learning those statements, curly brace is very important for you to use. It's not required as long as you have only, if one statement is not required. But whatever in this class, I want you to use curly brace throughout your programs, so you will have a better control of your program. Okay, when you get familiar in the future, you want to change it out, but by all means. But for this class, I want you to use curly brace throughout your programs. All right. So you see, this is an if statement inside the if statement, and even it's one line of code, I like you to use the curly brace here, and else it's the same thing. Okay, and if outside here, if else is here, so you can see here is nested if statements. If statement inside the if statements. All right. And for you to compare something, instead of the relational operator, sometimes we have different conditions need to combine. That's we call logical operators, which you know, and or not. Okay, we already see not earlier. So and is A greater than B and A greater than C, you know, and or A greater than B or B greater than B, C, something like that, and the not. So it bring it up to the comparison table. For and, true and false equal to false, false and true equal to false, false and false equal to false. The only way to be true is true and the true will be true in these logical operators. Or is different, true and false equal to true, false and true equal to true, false and false equal to false. True and true equal to true or true, sorry, equal to true, of course. This, if it's or, only need to be one expression to be true. Okay. For not, it's a little bit easy, which is if it's true, not true equal to false. If it's false, not false equal to true. Okay. So show circle is the way the compiler works. Remember, and the only condition to be true is both are true will be a true, right? So if today the first expression is false, what happened? They don't need to check the second one because it cannot be true, right? If it's and. How about or? The only condition to be false is what? Both are false to be false. So if today's first is true, it's already true for or. If first is false, and then you check the second one. All right, so that's called show circling to compares. And you have different order priorities, just like mathematics. Okay, not has the highest one, like and or, and then the comparison. The order of the precedence, you can see the negative sign, just like mathematics. Okay, and the dividing, modulus, and the multiplying, and the plus minus comparisons, all those are followed by the orders. Okay. In the C#, you can compare strings because string is the class which the function is already in place for you to work with those logical operator and the relational operators. So you can definitely do that to compare. All right. So this, I will end our video here. I try to keep video under 15 minutes. I will post the part 2 soon. If you have any question, let me know. Thank you.